Hello, and welcome to Setting the Standard, the podcast about wireless radio standards creation from the Wireless Innovation Forum. I'm your host and Communications Director of the Forum, Stephanie Hamill. In this episode, we're talking with Dr. Yifeng Zhou of Communications Research Center Canada about an exciting new international project for drones operating beyond the visual line of sight of the pilot, or BVLOS drones. Hi, Dr. Zhou. Thanks for meeting with me today.
Hi.
So today we are going to talk about your new project with the Forum, and the project focuses on drones that operate beyond the visual range of the pilot. So can you tell me why this focus and how this project came to be?
Sure. So first of all, I work with Dr. John Glossner. So he's the chair of the Drone Seeker group. So this is part of the work is part of the work group, and I'm a co-chair for this group. So the beyond the visual line of sight is pronounced the BVLOS. Is the drones have recently gained lots of significant interest from drone industry and operators. Right, BVLOS drone operates the beyond the normal visual range of the pilot. So that means pilot is out of the sight of the pilot. So compared to the traditional visual line of sight or VLOS drones, which can only operate to a limited maximum range, usually less than 1 kilometer's range. So the BVLOS drones can fly and cover a much greater or far greater distance. So it provides much more benefits, both in the efficiency and the cost effectiveness. And some applications would remain impossible to execute without the BVLOS. So we can list a lot of applications for BVLOS. So say, for example, environmental monitoring and measurement. So including my own expertise is the spectrum monitoring and the interference urban detection and localization in urban scenarios. And also one of the popular ones most people heard from the Amazon delivery. So those are the BVLOS drone applications. So you can have also the precision agriculture and the land management. So this type of drones that represent the next big opportunity for commercial drone operators. So this is where the greatest and multi-billion-dollar business potential for drones is likely to emerge in the next few years. Mm-hmm. But currently there is a barrier. So the barrier is more to do with the regulatory regulations. So currently, if you want to fly BVLOS, it needs a special approval. It's not like you want to fly, you go ahead and fly. No, you need the special approval from the aviation authorities. So in most countries, let's say in Canada, so you can only fly BVLOS in the certain scenarios, say remote and densely, sparsely populated areas. And then you still need it's called the Special Flight Operation Certificates, or its acronyms SFOCs from the Transportation Canada. But in the United States, if you want to fly BVLOS, requires special waiver from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. And they you send the application, they review the application on a case-by-case basis. And they want you to fill out the form. It's called the Part 107 waiver. So in general, if you want to obtain approval, it's not easy. And it's relatively a lengthy process. So this makes the BVLOS drones slow to capitalize on the technology's full potential. And what would be the problems in the BVLOS drone operations? So safety is a major the concern for BVLOS operations, because during the BVLOS operation, the pilot do not have the full control of the drones in a remote manner, or no control at all. In autonomous mode, you have no control of the drone. So the lack of a full human control may lead to additional risk of collisions with other aircraft or damage to the property on the ground. So especially when the flights takes place in the non-segregated airspace. So that means they are not segregated. All the aircrafts or flying objects are in the same airspace. So because of the critical safety aspect for BVLOS operation is the ability to maintain communications and control of the drones at all times, regardless of their locations. Mm-hmm. So in this sense, wireless communications is the essential enabling technology. Mm. And the BVLOS drone capabilities critically rely on efficient and reliable communications between the drones and the controllers.
Right.
So this is why regulators they place a significant emphasis on the robust command and control system when it comes to approving BVLOS controls. So as part of the drone SIG mandate, it will be interesting to look at the communication issues and their impacts. And this topic will have interest across the multiple committees. So this is where the project came about.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So what then is your end goal?
The end goal is the technical report to be distributed. And what we focus on the communication technologies for BVLOS drones operations and their requirements and also their suitabilities for various applications. So the scope of the project is will include, but it's not limited. I will talk about a couple of items in the scope. So one is that we want to look at the recent progress in BVLOS regulatory status, let's say ITU and the different nations. In particular, we focus on Canada and the US regulations. And different application and use cases. Say one of them we look at it is the unmanned traffic management. So this is called acronym UTM. So this is one major development along this line for regulatory bodies. So currently the UTM systems are still in development across the world. So what they do is they manages airspace to enable multiple BVLOS operations. So another one is an important milestone is the release of the final report by FAA's BVLOS operation ARC. So this one suggests that regulators will allow BVLOS flights will become more regular in the very near future, right? And we will look at the communications between drones, controllers, with the hybrid concepts of operations. So for communications, usually they rely on it's called the several categories of technologies. One is the direct infrastructure, satellite, waypoint deployment, fiber connection, etc. So we will look at some of those technologies and their impact on the BVLOS drones and how to improve communication technologies and protocols to ensure that the uninterrupted and safe BVLOS drone operations. And the other things that we want to look at it is the spectrum allocation considerations for BVLOS operations. So that means that because all those communication technologies, they are in the form of wireless communications. So they use the spectrum. So there are different, in the real world is we have different band of frequencies to be used, but they are regulators, right? So we will look at those technologies too, and also their spectrums. Let's say, for example, ISM is a unlicensed band, the mobile band, L and C band, etc. So we will do the band analysis for different application and use cases. So when we look at those different communications, we know that because the frequencies are regulators, so the use of those technologies in different spectrum must comply with the international spectrum regulations, especially the ITU. It's the international telecommunication union.
Right.
This is the international body looks after the frequency, and also the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO standard. The other one is look at it is the Radio Technical Commissions for aeronauticals, or acronyms RTCA standards. So we will look at the national regulators, their plans, their trends, and the corresponding the impacts. We will discuss all those components. And since the control links are the critical component of the BVLOS drones, and they may cause catastrophic consequences. So ICAO has determined that the control links for BVLOS drones must operate over protected aviation spectrums. So one of the examples is that ITU has already set aside the C-band spectrum from 5 gig to 5030 to 5090 megahertz for drone control links. And also the WRC, the World Radio Communication Conference in 2021, they also presented several likely candidates for communications with the drones in the non-segregated space. So I just want to say is that currently most of the drones communications, they use unlicensed. Unlicensed band is simple and low cost, but they are not protected, regulatory protected from the other users. So they may be susceptible to interference. And lastly, we will provide the recommendations on the correspondence of the communication technologies and spectrum to different drone applications. So this is a general description about the project.
Yeah, it's pretty in-depth and obviously international. So what is your hope of the impact that this project will have on the industry?
So we hope is that the study will provide some systematic and in-depth view of the communication technologies for BVLOS drone operations, and which may lead to future recommendations to both the industry and the regulators. I mean, the spectrum regulators and also the flight aviation regulators. So hopefully it will help the industry to better understand the role that the command control and the payload communications will play in BVLOS drone applications, operations, and their requirements for different applications. So I believe the audience or recipients are quite broad for this the study. So I can list a couple of areas that would be audience that would be interested in this study results. One is aviation, transportation, and telecommunication regulators. And the other one is the commercial operators, drone operators, and manufacturers, and aviation electronic suppliers. So they make components or subsystems for drones in terms of mechanical and also telecommunications. But in this sense, they are more interested in we are talking about more electronic communications components, and also the wireless networking system integrators. So these are some of examples of the the audience that would be interested in our study or research.
That's great. Yeah, we will get it out to them. And I know you want more people involved, and you have, I think, bi-weekly meetings. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how could people get involved, and who do you need on deck here to help out?
Yeah, I encourage all my member colleagues to participate in this study. So we have bi-weekly meetings online, and you can contact me or Dr. John Grossner. So if you are interested, so let us know you're interested, so we can talk and work together to get something out quick.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this today, and best of luck in your project.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay.